I'm Effie Parks. Welcome to Once Upon a Gene, the podcast. This is a place I created for us to connect and share the stories of our not-so-typical lives. Raising kids who are born with rare genetic syndromes and other types of disabilities can feel pretty isolating. What I know for sure is that when we can hear the triumphs and challenges from others who get it, we can find a lot more laughter, a lot more hope, and feel a lot less alone. I believe there are some magical healing powers that can happen for all of us through sharing our stories, and I'll take all the help I can get.
Once Upon a Gene is proud to be part of Bloodstream Media. Living in a family affected by rare and chronic illness can be isolating, and sometimes the best medicine is connecting to the voices of people who share your experience. This is why Bloodstream Media produces podcasts, blogs, and other forms of content for patients, families, and clinicians impacted by rare and chronic diseases. Visit bloodstreammedia.com to learn more.
Hi there, and welcome to the show. This is Once Upon a Gene, and I'm your host, Effie Parks. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today here on the podcast. It means so much to me. You could be doing a million other things. I really appreciate that you want to come hang out, be in this community, and learn something. Or just get fired up like you might today from this episode, because I'm talking to one of the cutest, sassiest women in rare disease. When Amber Freed calls you and says, I need to talk about something, you find some time on your calendar to let Amber Freed talk about something. If you don't know Amber Freed, she was on the podcast way back when. The link will be in the show notes for her past episode. But you must be under a rock that rare disease put on you and you haven't been able to lift off yet. But I assure you, people who have been helped by Amber, and Amber herself can help lift up that rock. She shares her homework. She motivates and empowers everyone across the world to pick up a sword and do something for rare disease in one way, shape, or form. I know CTNW1 is so lucky to have had her mentorship over the years, and many others who wouldn't be where they're at without her help. So today we're talking about ICD codes. We're talking about the frustrations, the battles, and the downright common sense changes that we're fighting for in the rare disease community to get these important ICD codes. It's pivotal for the recognition, the research, and treatment of rare diseases. There's a lot of hurdles and there's a lot of bureaucracy, and advocates are getting angry and they're getting loud about it, and they're on the path to help change this. And I gotta tell you, when it comes to fighting for what's right, y'all know the rare disease community is relentless. So in the future, we're gonna have some more in-depth chats about ICD codes from experts. So keep an eye out for those. But today I'm just having an informal chat with Amber, who has been pounding the pavement for an ICD code for SLC6A1. So we're going to hear about her experience. And she also brings up a book. She brings up a book that is out. It has a cute little drawings in it, and it's things that have ICD codes. Amber names a couple of her favorites, and I thought I'd go through some of the pages and leave a couple of my favorites. And one of them that has an ICD code is knitting and crocheting. And the other one is opera house as the place of occurrence of the external cause. These are things that have ICD codes that help gather patients. Yet rare disorders like ours, where gathering the patients and the information is so important, are being denied ICD codes. So I will stop rambling and I will just let you hear from the woman herself. Please enjoy my conversation with Amber Freed. Oh, hi, Amber Freed. So nice to have you back on the podcast.
So happy to be here.
It's been so long since you've been here. I'm so excited to have you back. You know, you're everyone's biggest, champion, and everyone loves you so much, and you're so helpful, and you're such an asset to the rare disease community. So thank you for taking the time.
So happy to be here.
Okay, so today we are talking about the bane of many rare diseases' existence, what the ICD code debacle is all about, and why we need them, and what they're for, and what's the problem, and why should we care, and as many things as we can figure out how to hash out through in a little podcast episode. So first, Amber, for anyone who hasn't been lucky enough to encounter you, could you please give us a little intro about who you are?
Sure. I spent my career in equity research, and I had twins in March of 2017. It is going to be their birthday in 7 days, and I have even hired a mermaid to give out cake. I am so excited.
So cute.
So early on, after my twins were born, I just noticed my son Maxwell was not doing the same things that his twin sister Riley was doing right on the mat next to him. And after a long diagnostic odyssey and so many twists and turns, he was diagnosed with SLC6A1. And I quickly realized from the moment that alphabet soup left the kind doctor's lips that nobody was ever going to come and rescue us, that the only person that could help Maxwell are his parents, those people that love him. And I took it on as my life's mission at that moment to help every other child with SLC6A1 and develop treatments for this rare condition. I have spent every minute working on that mission since.
Yeah, you have. And it's not just that you started a foundation to fund research for SLC6A1. You have also been a mentor to so many others in the rare disease community, including CT and NB1. So thank you for always being such a giver. You rock. Okay, well, let's dive into it, Amber. The ICD-10 codes. First of all, can you just give us an explanation of what these codes are and why they're important for the diagnosis and treatment for rare diseases?
Sure. So most people listening to this, and probably most people that have never been very sick, would not know what an ICD-10 code is. And to give a little bit of history, back in 1999, the ICD-10 code was developed by the World Health Organization, and it was used to track mortality coding from death certificates with that census probably. And what that means in a practical sense is it became the way we tracked how people died, but also the way people were diagnosed and treated for conditions. And that code went from the World Health Organization through the Centers for Disease Control in the US.
Okay, so how do ICD-10 codes now impact research and funding and development of treatments for rare diseases?
Sure. So ICD-10 codes drive so much in clinical medicine. What an ICD-10 code looks like today is not just mortality coding. When you go to the doctor with strep throat or something, the doctor inputs a code of what is actually bothering you. So there is a code for the flu or strep throat or whatever. And in a total practical sense of an ICD-10 code, it is how the doctor bills insurance or self-funding or whatever for insurance.
I don't think ICD codes is necessarily even like common language among parents who are pretty new to this or who aren't active with their patient advocacy orgs. But I know you've seen that weird little number that's right next to that denial in that insurance letter that you get for your kid for whatever reason. So this is the code. And sometimes if you really want to pay attention and kind of get nerdy about it, those codes sometimes don't have anything to do with the diagnosis of your kid. And it was just picked because they knew it might get approved, or maybe they were being lazy, or maybe they just couldn't think off the top of their head what ICD code could fit whatever they were trying to get covered through insurance. So sometimes it can be completely random for whatever reason. What do you think about that misclassification or the lack of a specific ICD-10 code, and how has that been impacting kids like ours?
The ICD-10 code was probably never meant to become what it has. But yes, now it is the bones of our healthcare system. And this has really impacted rare disease because our kids go to the doctor and we describe some of their symptoms, but we need a code to represent our specific diseases. It's how we become legitimized as a real disease, a real population, and as a way to be tracked in our healthcare system. Right now, all rare diseases are struggling so much to find patients. And we're also trying to encourage doctors to genetically test their patients when they show up with a very strange set of symptoms. And this is the most eloquent way to fix this problem for our communities.
Mm-hmm. So this is so complex and it's so confusing, and I know it has made so many of us angry across the board. Why is the process of attaining and assigning an ICD-10 code for our rare diseases so messed up? Why is it so difficult?
To answer this question, I think it would be best to start with who it's easy for to obtain an ICD-10 code for. Let's talk a little bit about the existing codes right now. This is the type of stuff that you can't even make up. Some of my favorite codes relate to animals, like being bitten by a pig, initial encounter, struck by a duck, subsequent encounter, other contact with a cow. These codes with the animals, they bring up so many more questions, like who was struck by a duck twice? And what was that other encounter with a cow? What happened there? And also, how did you get a code?
It's so hard not to laugh at. Like, I just have a really hard time. I've seen this book. It's out of control. I mean, there's one like being hit by a couch, right? Like falling over furniture. I mean, it's comical and it's really frustrating, especially when many of our orgs have attempted to go through the process of gaining one of these codes. So why do you think there are some of these random ICD codes, and what are the problems that we're facing as patient advocacy orgs in getting them? What are the barriers, and why are there barriers? Why wouldn't they want these classified? And what is kind of the real reason, maybe?
This is something I would love to tell you about, and I've spent hundreds of hours trying to figure this out myself. And thank goodness for SLC6A1 and Kim Nye. If it weren't for her organization and combined brain, we wouldn't be nearly as far even trying to answer this question. So in all of our naivete, we approach the Centers for Disease Control and we say, "Hi, Center for Disease Control. It looks like you assign ICD-10 codes. And it also looks like there's an ICD-10 code for bizarre personal appearance. And so we all already fit under that code. How can we get a specific one for our kids' rare disease?" And we are given a couple of answers and we formally apply. I can only speak to my story, but I applied way back in 2021, where I learned that there are only 2 chances a year to obtain an ICD-10 code. And you submit a formal application, then if you're selected, you can present before a committee. If you're not selected to present, then you have to wait another 6 months, and if you are chosen, it will take an additional year to be assigned an actual code. We weren't selected. Instead, we were deferred another 6 months. And this insanity has gone on for 3 years before I contacted a man named David Berglund at the CDC and said, "Please do explain why we can't even be heard for a rare disease code." And I actually just glossed over that we were selected to be heard this time last year. So many rare disease doctors went up before the panel and pled their heart out why this is such an obstruction for the rare disease community, why we need a code, suggestions as to the code they can give us. We handed it to them on a silver platter. The logic for which we were given as to why we can't get a code included the following. Doctors aren't smart enough to understand more codes. There are already too many codes in the system. To which I responded, using that logic, that's like saying Taylor Swift should not write another song because there are so many songs already in this world. Where would we be as a society if Taylor Swift just stopped putting out music? That's sick. The second reason was the Centers for Disease Control isn't sure that genetics cause disease.
Whoa. They said that?
Yes. Now it becomes a feedback loop because the CDC says that, and then they also blame the AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the AAP blames the Society for Neurologists. But yes, it is said many times over by many organizations. At the end of the day, they're all playing hot potato and just won't take us on.
Okay, just real briefly, if you can, because I know it's really extensive. Can you give us sort of some insight on it, what that application looks like that you put forward, and you explained pleading your case, right? And so what goes into that? You said you had some doctors on there. Obviously, you have to have some people on your side. But what does a patient advocacy org have to gather to then maybe hopefully get selected for that limited call option twice a year? So what all did you have to give them on that silver platter to have them come back to you with such silly reasons?
The application itself is pretty straightforward. There is a scientific component and a clinical component with material I would say most people listening either have already or should have fairly soon. It's not too hard to put it together if you have a medical board of advisors or if you're involved with an organization like Combined Brain.
Okay.
To be selected is totally unclear. There is no process.
Interesting. Is there any reasoning behind why only a certain amount can get selected every 6 months?
No, there is no reasoning at all. And there is a single point person at the CDC. And what I would say I've learned is that it's mostly his decision, and that this entire process is the decision of one person at the CDC.
Yes, I think some of us know who that person is. So why do you think there are such strong opinions, obviously with the bureaucratic side of things, but also with maybe clinicians? Why do you think there are varying opinions on why communities should be getting ICD-10 codes?
I had a call with the AAP just a couple of weeks ago with the doctors we all love so much within our community and the advocates we all love. And some of the reasons I was given specifically, it all falls under that it's just too much work. It was said that there are too many rare diseases, and if we give you one, we need to give everyone a code. That just feels so wrong. And so I even suggested at one point, what if I bought an angry duck, and before every kid with SLC6A1 went to the doctor, I had that duck bite them, and we could just repurpose that duck code because they were able to get a code. And so, you know what? We don't even need a new code. We're all set. Just give us that code.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past you, Amber. And I feel like a really great viral video campaign happening for all of our kids with a duck.
I think that's what needs to happen. Get a duck, a pig, a cow, whatever it is, and say, hey, look, also, all of the parents can maintain our bizarre personal appearance. So that is killing two birds with one stone.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure there's an ICD code for that, actually. Okay, so recently I actually heard an argument of maybe we shouldn't have each rare disorder have its own ICD-10 code. We should have a universal rare genetic or neurodevelopmental ICD code. Have you ever heard that argument, and why or why not would that be helpful or not helpful?
I have heard the argument, and what I would say is bringing this down to all of our personal experience. When you sat in that diagnostic room and a doctor delivered a rare disease diagnosis to you, did they come in and say, hey, this is everything we know about this disease, contact this patient organization? I heard there's a gene therapy in the works for you at the University of Minnesota. Maybe, but probably not. And the argument that I keep going back to for patient organizations, for actual patients, for doctors, is that this ecosystem has become very, very, very complex. And if patients or doctors are given a diagnosis and a code that goes along with it, it makes the insurance billing process so much easier for all of us. And it helps patients find patient organizations, find scientists, find the doctors where there may only be one in the world that are familiar with their specific disease, but also it will help patient organizations find those patients and say, hey, we've been working on a treatment for you. We've repurposed a drug for you. Like, please just Google the condition, doctor, patient, whatever, and look and see what comes up so that we can help each other.
Mm-hmm. Amen. I mean, we could go on a whole different tangent about what families are offered in the diagnosis room, which is still so broken and full of emptiness. Okay, so where do we fight? I mean, this seems like such an extra thing, as usual, put on the shoulders of families who are raising money and funding research to find treatments and therapeutics for these rare diseases. So where do we galvanize for this? Like, is this an education and awareness issue? Is this a policy change through government and bureaucracy? Is this like a data collection thing? Is this, globally, like international collaboration? Is this figuring out technology issues and EHR connections? Like, where do we start to make a difference? Because not every single person can just file a lawsuit to finally get their ICD code. And that might not work every time either.
That's right. And I ask myself this exact question a lot. How far do we educate all of those people that should also be helping us before we become angry that we're just straight up justifying the lives of our loved ones at this point? And I think this is a specific issue where, as a rare disease community, we need to become angry. This is extra. This isn't something we should all be fighting every day. We have educated now as much as possible. It is time to get the Rare Disease Caucus involved. It is time to talk to the White House about this and contact our senators, our congressmen, and also we all need to apply for ICD-10 codes.
At the same time, like, should it be like a giant group effort, like crawling up the stairs? Like, should every rare disease org, at least, focally, like, say every org that is a part of Combined Brain, should everyone submit an application at the same time and be loud?
Have an application in the works, but more importantly, I think this is a topic where we all need to be loud. This one person at the CDC is certainly not going to work past 5 o'clock to make sure that rare diseases receive a code. He's far too busy monitoring the amount of shark bites off the coast of Argentina right now. So get angry. Start blogging about this. This needs to be a topic that everyone needs to tweet about and become angry about to be noticed.
Who should we be partnering with as rare disease orgs to help move this forward in a policy avenue? Or like, what other sort of umbrella group should rare disease groups be uniting with to help get this sort of over the line, or like at least onto the board? Is this like a every life thing? Is this like who could sort of be the quarterback?
This is all of the above. Absolutely all of the above. Talk to NORD, talk to Every Life, talk to Global Genes, talk to your patient organization. All of us need to become angry about this in order to enact change from within.
Okay. And then how about some top 5 action items? Can you think of the top 5 things that families, parents, advocates, patient advocacy orgs can do right now to get the balls rolling?
Sure. Definitely apply. Definitely start advocating to larger organizations like Global Genes, NORD, Every Life. Contact Combined Brain. Combined Brain has led a lot of the actions with the help of the Test Foundation, and now SLC6A1 Connect is taking a larger role in some of these grassroots efforts of just obtaining a code. We plan to organize writing letters to politicians, writing letters to the AAP, the AAN, essentially any areas that are open to you. just start getting the message out as much as possible.
Okay. By the time this episode comes out, Amber, could we perhaps maybe have a downloadable, editable PDF and have this letter that goes to your representatives already written, and you can just plug in your disorder and everyone can have the same language and it can already be there and all you have to do is fire it off? And also maybe copy of like a social media campaign that every single one of us are sharing like wildfire. Can we have 2 of those things that people can just copy and paste, because you know how difficult it is for anyone to do anything?
We absolutely can do that.
Yeah, I think that would be good. When we can put it all over social media, people can put it in their newsletters, but most of all, we can do the work once and everybody can share the homework and spread it.
That is perfect.
Is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to talk about or that we really need to touch on? I know this episode is kind of like a prequel to like starting a huge conversation, a movement, and really just get this going faster than it has been, because I know it's been so piecemealed and it's so confusing and so many people get different ideas and different opinions on why ICD codes are good or bad. And so I think what we're doing right here is just establishing a baseline of, guess what? This is something that we have to work on now. This is super important and we have to get the ball moving and we have to do it together.
Absolutely. The only thing I would add is that by disallowing rare diseases in ICD-10 code, it is sending the direct message that we are too rare to be counted, and that minimalizes the lives of every rare disease patient.
Amen. Okay, Amber, tell everyone where they can find you, how they can connect with you if they have any specific questions on anything really, but especially ICD codes and your work through Combined Brain, maybe if that's the avenue you want them to go. How can people get in touch with you if they need to?
Amber Freed is the easiest person to get a hold of. Probably a little too easy. Look me up on LinkedIn, my website. My website has all of my contact information. Just get a hold of me and we will have all of the contact information, social media, application, like a 1-page to-do list of getting an ICD-10 code attached by the time this podcast goes out.
Okay, awesome. You're so amazing and generous and smart, Amber. Thank you. And yeah, make sure you check your show notes for this episode. We're going to have a downloadable PDF and copy for social medias. Please encourage your patient population and your groups and your advocates to just share. If that's all one can do, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of advocacy, is to just share content online. So please make sure to download it, fill it out, and just start pushing it in your emails.
Totally agreed. In the meantime, please have your kids bitten by pigs.
Oh, yeah. And any other type of animal that just might randomly come across. That's a great idea. Thanks, Amber. Love you lots.
Thank you.
I hope you've been enjoying this podcast. If you like what you hear, please share this show with your people, and please make sure to rate and review it on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also head over to Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to connect with me and stay updated on the show. If you're interested in sharing your story, or if you have anything you would like to contribute, please submit it to my website at effieparks.com. Thank you so much for listening to the show and for supporting me along the way. I appreciate y'all so much. I don't know what kind of day you're having, but if you need a little pick-me-up, Ford's got you.